So we heard the term disruption obviously being pronounced a few times on this panel. And our next guest is someone who believes that disruption can actually be applied as an ecosystem. So I would like to introduce, the one and only Mr. Brian Solis. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Paul, thank you for that very exciting and enthusiastic introduction.
The stage is yours, my friend.
Bonjour, bonjour, everyone. So there's this word I'm sure you've heard plenty of times while we're here, disruption, disruption, disruption. But what does it really mean? And why is it so important? Well, I've assembled as one of your curators two speakers that I believe are demonstrating what is possible with disruption when you look beyond a product, when you look beyond just a service, when you disrupt to the point where you change an entire ecosystem, where the world adapts to you instead of you trying to adapt to the world. And I think at the heart of this, at the heart of any bit of innovation, is trying to do something different, something better, that you couldn't do yesterday, that you never knew was possible. Because no entrepreneur said, ever, that we should just do things the way we always have. Everything can be different, and this is what inspires me, and I hope that you get inspired by the two speakers that we have that I'll introduce in one moment. But I'd like you to think of something along with me. I see startups, I talk to investors, I talk to brands every day, and too often I see what I call incrementalism. It's just us pushing forward in iteration, little by little by little. Even Apple has been guilty of that these last few years. But innovation introduces us to something new. And when we are introduced to something new, we're introduced to the opportunity for disruption, because it changes behavior, it changes norms, it changes expectations, and hopefully it changes markets around us. And the way that I think about disruption as an ecosystem is this idea of interconnectedness and interacting paths as a business. So for example, with Apple's success depends on hardware and software integration. And so what I would like to introduce to you is this notion that as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as someone with an idea, that true innovation and true disruption starts by questioning everything. Everything can be different. So I would like to, before we bring out our first guest, show you a short video of Skully helmets. Let's go ahead and play the video.
The technology should be seamless, and it should give you more from the experiences you love. Our technology fundamentally enhances human capability.
From Sarah. Turn left in 20 miles.
This is the new evolution of the story.
Yeah.
I think this is hot. That feels like tomorrow. It really, really does. It feels like tomorrow.
You've taken all the electronics out of the high-tech cars and just put it right here. Honestly, it's going to change everything.
When you put on a Skully helmet, you get essentially an ecosystem.
As soon as you turn something into a platform, then suddenly you get a level of innovation that you had never thought about before.
Being a professional motorcycle racer takes a lot of fun away from riding on the street. But this could make it fun again.
it will make your riding safer.
With its high-speed microprocessor and operating system, it's the smartest motorcycle helmet ever imagined. Skully is the future. Join the revolution.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage Dr. Marcus Weller, co-founder and CEO of Skully Helmets. Welcome, welcome. All right. Well, I have to say that maybe you don't know this, but I actually love to ride motorcycles, and I was first introduced to the new helmet as a consumer, and I fell in love with just the idea. And having met you and having met your team, very much inspired by what it is you're working on. But I would love for everyone here to just hear the story behind the helmet. How did you even come up with the idea?
Well, I wish I could take credit for sort of diligently innovating it, but that wasn't really how it happened. What happened was, in 2011, I was on my motorcycle in Barcelona, and I was on my way to this appointment. So I looked to my right to read a street sign, and because I was doing that, trying to figure out where I was going, I hadn't noticed that this little red smart car in front of me had actually slammed on the brakes. So by the time I noticed that, I was already crashing into the back, and I totaled the bike, I ripped my palm off, and it sucked. But then, a few months later, it was a Wednesday in May of 2012. I had a dream that I was back on the motorcycle that day. But there was an important difference, and that was that I had these GPS maps, and they were floating out in front of me like a hologram. And because I wasn't looking to my right at the street sign, but rather looking forward with my eyes on the road, I saw the brake lights illuminate on the smart car, and I swerved around him. And it was like this pattern interrupt. It woke me up out of a dead sleep. And I pulled up my laptop to try to buy it, and I was pretty disappointed to find out that I couldn't because it didn't exist. So the next step for me was to basically build it myself, because that was the only way I was going to have it in the foreseeable future.
Well, it's an unfortunate incident, but I think that the fact that you're here to tell the story, and the fact that you're probably going to save a lot of lives in the process, is really telling. What we really didn't get a look at in the video was exactly what's in the helmet and what makes this helmet so innovative and so different. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that the patents that for heads-up display helmets have gone back to the 1950s. And helmets for fighter pilot helmets for the military cost around $4 million. So needless to say, they're not very. It's not a very palatable sort of price point for the consumer market. But I think one of the key innovations and sort of the key challenges or the barriers to entry was to get the optics right, so that the heads-up display optics would provide an image that focused at infinity. It was really robust to direct sunlight, and it was still translucent. So that's a really challenging thing you see with Google Glass. A lot of times it washes out in direct sunlight, and so we had to mitigate that because this was designed to be used outdoors, and you really had to rely on it for the safety-related information to save your life. So that was one of the key aspects. And then, there is an entire connected, ecosystem of sensors and microprocessors on board that allow us to do some pretty interesting things around both data analytics and providing information to riders as they need it. So our user interface, we can talk more about that later, is what we call an anti-UI. And it's intended to not be interfaced with, to only provide you with information as you need it. So the system is designed to be intelligent enough to know what information you need and render it when it's necessary.
So what else is in the helmet besides the HUD?
So it also has a 180-degree viewing angle rear view camera. So what you've seen in the video, there's a little video feed in the bottom right, and what that actually does is it's a situational awareness technology. It shows basically a bubble of awareness around the rider. So because the camera's viewing angle overlaps with the person's human peripheral vision, it actually provides 360-degree awareness. So that's really important for riders because they constantly have to do these head checks to assess their situation or to assess their surroundings, and this provides them information that makes it effectively a lot easier to be aware of their surroundings.
So aside from the innovation in the heads-up display and the camera, I believe it has built-in speakers as well, the anti-UI is one of the things that I found so fascinating, because one of my favorite sayings, especially in technology, is it is at its best when it's invisible, when it's just an extension of what it is that you're trying to do. Tell us more about what the experience is like.
Well, I mean, the experience is really intended to be a natural extension of yourself. And what I mean by that is we took the technology and we said, okay, with all of these tools that everyone else is using, software and hardware and sensors and so forth, how do we do something that's truly different? Because in a transportation context, particularly for riders, it's a really highly cognitively loaded task. You're constantly attending to all kinds of different pieces of information and having to react to them. So what our goal was is to reduce the net cognitive load of the activity. And that's what we mean by a situational awareness technology. So what that's intended to do is basically, by not having to think about, for example, where you're going, but to provide that information in a heads-up display that's focused at infinity, really easy to perceive. And then you have auditory and visual cues that show you where you're going. You can just focus on the road. And then it'll tell you when you need to be cued to a turn. And so I think it's things like that, and also, being more aware of your surroundings by rendering your rear view camera and your heads-up display, making it very, very easy to see and understand for your brain. Those are, I think, absolutely necessary for technology in a transportation context.
Right, so one of the things that I found fascinating, just by the way, I'm not only a friend of the company, but I'm also a customer. I hope to be soon, but I was a participant in your Indiegogo campaign, and I would love for you to just share the story of, is there a market for this helmet? Did you see any demand?
Well, yeah, we kicked off an Indiegogo campaign to sort of validate our product market fit. So we wanted to make sure that we had the right feature set, the right price point, and we thought we could quantitatively do that at $250,000. We thought if we could pre-sell sight unseen $250,000 worth of the product, that it would be a go, and we wouldn't need to modify it. So what ended up happening is that we kicked off the campaign at 6 a.m., and we hit $250,000 in 6 minutes. So there was a lot of, I think, pent-up demand.
So
you
think there's demand?
A little bit. And then we also we were the fastest Indiegogo campaign ever to reach $1 million, doing it in less than 48 hours. And then we also set the record for the largest successful tech raise at $2.8 million.
So aside from the support on Indiegogo, I mean, there's already a cult following. I've followed many groups dedicated to exploring the possibilities of the helmet, how it's going to change their riding habits and style. I mean, this is disruption as an ecosystem, but how is a helmet going to change the whole art and beauty of motorcycle riding?
I mean, it's a great question. When we set out to do this, it struck me that for about 40 years, helmets had been nothing but foam and plastic shells. It's one of those very, very rare industries where it's been untouched by the internet. And so for us, when we looked at this, we thought, what can we do to take this industry and this platform, a helmet with a shell, from just being something that prevents your head from hitting the pavement in the event of an accident, and how can we leverage technology to actually prevent the accident in the first place? And I think that's really what is exciting about this, because we can take and extend the experience from the motorcycle to the rider, and from the top of their head down to the rubber on the road, it's a totally immersed experience. So recently we also did an integration with Aprilia motorcycles. They launched their flagship bike, Skully Ready, which is a big step forward for the industry, because what they're doing is taking the telemetry, the gauges from the motorcycle, rendering them in our heads-up display. And that's important because they're focused at infinity. So when you're looking far away and you glance at the gauges in the heads-up display, they're instantly in focus. There's no refocusing your eye from the gauges back up to the road again. So there's a lot of things that I think that we can do to start incorporating better technology for riders. And then for the transportation industry as a whole, I think it's really exciting that we're starting to look at vehicle-to-vehicle communication as a protocol to broadcast the relative position of the rider. The reason why that's important is because with an 802.11p protocol, what we can actually do is provide basically what amounts to a digital force field around the rider. So by broadcasting the relative position of the rider, cars that are intelligent and connected simply won't run into them. And I think that's a huge step forward, not just for riders, but for drivers as well. It's essentially making it so that the concept of just being able to run cars and motorcycles into each other seems actually barbaric.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, I've been a long-time rider. My father's a long-time rider. He's had his share of horrible accidents. But the idea of a force field, the idea of a Skully-ready motorcycle, what we're starting to see is that the helmet, which is fascinating to me, after just no innovation on that front at all, is now changing everything from the outside in, right? So how is this gonna open up the market for motorcycle riders, for people who just never would have considered it before? Because I'll tell you that I don't ride as much as I used to because people are distracted. And I'm not kidding when I say this. I can't tell you how many times I'm on my motorcycle and I see people taking selfies while they're driving. And I know it's just a matter of time until the odds are not in my favor. So does this change that? Does this make it approachable for anyone?
I think it does. I mean, for every one person that I meet that's psyched about the helmet and currently owns a motorcycle, I meet 5 that don't ride anymore, but used to and love the concept. And I think that's pretty interesting, is that more people will be able to get out there and to ride and to do so safely, and we'll pick back up motorcycling again, which is a great community, and it's an area of passion. I mean, I think it's a very, very exciting thing. But it also goes beyond just the helmet and even beyond motorcycling. I think it's thinking about how to overlay mobile technology and the rate at which mobility sort of innovates on the automotive industry. So it's really looking at how do we do that more effectively. And for us, this is kind of a stepping stone in that direction.
All right, so I'm going to open it up to Q&A, so get some questions ready for Dr. Marcus. But before I turn it over to you, what's next? What's next for you?
I think the biggest thing for us is, of course, to ship on time. So we're very focused on that. We just recently opened our pre-sales for a short holiday campaign yesterday, and we hit $250,000 in one day again. So there's still a lot of demand, and we have a commitment to our customers. So we're eager to continue to push that forward and to make sure that we deliver and over-deliver on our promises to the customer.
That's good. All right, so any questions?
Hi. Can you explain to us how it is powered?
Sorry, could we turn on the mic in the audience?
Can you explain how it is powered?
Yes, it has a lithium-ion battery. It lasts 9 hours. We also have, speaking about what's next, we have some IP around a wind induction turbine that helps regeneratively charge the battery through the ventilation system that will come out in a subsequent version of the product.
Wow, I didn't know that. Any other questions?
Okay. Hello, I'm Dimitri Carbonell from Livosphere. I have a question concerning online, offline, because in a certain number of points, you won't have any connection to the outside. So how do you manage that? I mean, if you're in a tunnel or somewhere else, how do you manage that? To avoid having a stop, I would say.
That's a great question. So it was about sort of managing the online and offline modes. So we developed our system around needing to operate whether it's online or offline. So we have our navigation system actually has both of those modes. So when the system's connected, it loads everything that it needs to get from point A to point B. And then in the interim, when it experiences intermittent connection, it'll carry that information forward. So the helmet operates not only standalone with information stored on board, but it's made more powerful when it connects to the internet through the smartphone as a conduit.
Two questions. All right, over here, number 5.
Yeah, 2 questions. One is you've changed from being an inventor to managing this whole operation. What kind of help did you get for that? And the other is, I would think that with this invention, there'd be a lot more than just motorcycles that could benefit from it. people with visual challenge? I don't know, other things? Are you thinking of that?
Yeah, so on the going from inventor to manager, it's a challenging transition to say the least. You know, as our company grows and scales, there's more and more management that's required. One of the ways that I'm doing that is my brother and co-founder Mitchell Weller. He heads up operations, so he really helps with the tactical operations of the business as well. And I think that's really key, is to have somebody close to you that can give you feedback and call you on your stuff when you need to be called on it. And so he's really my confidant, and that's pretty much the only way that I could do it. And then the question about other potential applications, I think that taking a human factors approach to the engineering means that we design and operate from the inside from the inside of the human outward rather than from the outside in. And so that allows us to really think about how does the human use this product and need this product. So everything from, you know, how do we, you know, process, or the psychophysics of sort of visual perception, and how we, you know, visually accommodate for things in our visual field, and looking up close to looking far away and up close again, and managing that through the optics. All of those are aspects of it. And so I agree that a lot of times when you design for something that's a sort of a hostile environment or a highly dynamic environment that's challenging to design for, it ends up having broader applications. So I think you're right that in the future, it's quite likely that we see gauges and telemetry in vehicles focused at infinity rather than on your dash. And I think that's a pretty straightforward extrapolation from this exercise to the broader automotive market.
Okay, last question, number 6.
Hello, I'm LeWeb'14 from Petit-Web in France. Congratulations for your product. What is the weight of the helmet? And what are your relations with the car industry? Do you build a partnership with them?
Great question. So the helmet is comparable in weight to a standard premium helmet on the market. So we started with a lot lighter shell to essentially counterbalance the weight of the electronics. The weight of the electronics are also balanced from the front to the rear, with heads-up display optics in the front and rear camera optics in the rear. And then as far as automotive partnerships are concerned, we're really excited about a partnership we have with Continental. They're a $45 billion a year automotive supplier. They're doing some really interesting stuff around the connected vehicle. And so we launched that partnership a few months ago, and we've recently demonstrated some connectivity with some of their devices, ECUs and CAN buses, which are the computers on board of the vehicles. So I think that's a really exciting area, because now we're starting to expand the helmet into the broader ecosystem and taking into account all of those other connected devices that we can leverage in that mesh.
Well, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for being here, and also thank you for inventing the Skully helmet. Just as a consumer, as a human being, and also as a father, I thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Marcus Weller.
Thank you.